Dylan, if you're listening in post, this is when the episode is going to start. So you're going to want to start recording. I mean, you're going to want to cut everything before then, and this is when it starts. In three, two, one. This is when the episode starts. Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. My name is Gab, and I am here with my cousin and co-host,
Dylan.
And today we are discussing a movie that I has nominated. Damn it. That I has nominated.
Me feel English? That's impossible.
I has not. Do you remember when that was like really like trendy and funny to be like, I has a cheeseburger?
I can has cheeseburger? Yes.
Yes.
We're
That's kind
bringing
of
it
what I
back.
just did there. Sorry. But anyway, yada yada yada. I picked this movie. I said this movie is the shit, and that movie is the one and only, although now it has been made into a Hulu television series, which we will discuss, I'm sure, starring Gina Davis, Madonna, Tom Hanks, and a fantastic performance by Rosie O'Donnell, the one and only 1992 classic, A League of Their Own. Dylan, right away, tell the people what this movie is about.
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I dive at your bottom. I bloody well ought to.
A League of Their Own is about a bunch of broads and dames whose husbands have gone off to war. It's 1943, so it's fine to call them broads and dames, which was the style at the time.
Of course.
And so baseball is very worried about the fact that all the men who are playing baseball are off to, fight Nazis. So they decide for entertainment to start a women's league.
Yes. And it's funny you started with broads and dames because I really felt in my heart of hearts you were going to say it's broads playing baseball.
It's just a bunch of guys and dolls. There's no guys, though. There's like two guys.
There's mostly dolls and there's mostly baseball. Yes. So while the men are off at war, the women are taking over the entertainment value of baseball. And there are some really, really good baseball players out there that have been, I guess, commissioned. I don't know how you would phrase that, to play baseball. Dylan, what does IMDb have to say?
According to IMDb, during World War II, sisters Dottie and Kit joined the first female professional baseball league and struggled to help it succeed amid their own growing rivalry.
Yeah, I guess that's important to note in there too. Taglines, perhaps?
I got a few for you. To achieve the incredible, you have to attempt the impossible.
No.
I don't like it. There's no crying in baseball.
Yes.
Feels, obvious and obviously iconic, but okay. This summer, Tom Hanks and the Rockford Peaches prove that a woman's place is at home. First, second, and third.
I kind of like that.
I'm just going to skip one to go to the last one here is a woman's place is on home, first, second, and third. And I feel like
that's better.
The shorter version, a woman's place is at home, first, second, and third.
Yeah.
Because obviously 1943, sexism is kind of important to the movie.
Yeah. What I don't like is the first one where it specifically calls out Tom Hanks because he's not the star of this movie.
Well, I feel like I'll get into it more during opinion time, but I do also have a problem with who's listed as like the stars normally when you think of this movie.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm excited to talk about it. So I thought this would be a fun pick because baseball season just ended, of course, as most of you know. Our dear Mets did not make it into the World Series, but I'll tell you what, Dylan, those Yankees are getting fucking shit wrecked.
Gab, if by the time we put this episode out, they have come back from down 3-0 to win the World Series, I'm going to be so mad at you because this feels like it would be somehow the curse that you have put out there.
Oh my God, maybe. But I'm telling you, it's not possible. The Dodgers are too good. And honestly, like, keep in mind, the Mets swept the Yankees all year. Like, they are really not that good of a team. They have like 2 or 3 decent bets when it comes to, their offense. But quite frankly, like, the American League teams are just not as good as the National League teams. And so for the best National League team to be facing the Yankees, it's like, oh, God, they don't stand a chance.
Well, and if the Yankees MVP, Aaron Judge, is going to play like crap, they're not going to be able to win. But that's obviously what people come to this podcast for us to ruminate on the World Series.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Now, my boss, Justin, if you're listening, what's up? You're the best. He is at Game 5 tonight. And I think he's gonna be devastated that he spent as much money as he did to go to this game because I don't think it's going to end well.
I mean, as long as he's not that guy in the outfield who tried to rip the ball out of Mookie Betts' glove.
Can you believe that shit?
There's a whole documentary and obviously a whole big thing
Yes.
about Catching Hell, which I would highly recommend and I might do in this podcast at some point, about Steve Bartman, who was the person who put his hand out and stopped the Cubs from going to the World Series, which was really an oversimplification. But for this
He
guy to,
interfered.
yes, and he interfered with a foul ball. Mookie Betts was catching a home run, and this guy kept him in the air and ripped the ball out of his glove. Like, that guy should be banned for life. And apparently the Yankees weren't banning him. MLB had to do it. Like
Oh, I didn't know
MLB,
MLB did it.
Major League Baseball had to tell them, this was only a couple hours ago, that they were like, don't, the guy apparently had tickets to the game today. And they were like, no, he can't go to the game,
Yeah.
which should
Yeah.
have been an obvious thing, but whatever. I don't know. It's just, I saw a lot of people saying it. I kind of agree that it shows like how far society has gone downwards, that now we're like glorifying it and we're like, yeah, way to go. And like 20 years ago, that guy was a pariah because of it.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. I would love to do that movie. I haven't seen it, but I know the story.
It's a great
Um,
documentary.
I would love to watch it. But anyway, so I thought this movie would be good because of the baseball season connection. Obviously, Corey has gotten really into baseball this year because it was very important to me, and he wasn't really a major fan prior to this season. Like he would go with me to games or whatever, but he born and raised in the Bronx, considered himself a Yankee fan, just kind of like tertiarily,
Don't be fooled by the rock score he's got.
Yeah, no. He did grow up very close to J-Lo though. On the six, I guess. But anyway, this season he became a diehard Mets fan. He is bleeding orange and blue
You should
forever.
get him to a doctor.
Good call.
It is
And
so bad.
because he has learned a ton about the game of baseball, because of course he knew the basics, right? But he didn't know what a ground rule double was. He didn't know like, the intricacies and what, how to turn double plays and all of that stuff. Um, I thought this would be a really fun thing to watch. So we watched it together. And I guess we need to go into opinion time for me to say this. So will you play the sound clip?
In this critic's opinion,
That's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
Thank you. Okay, so my first opinion is that this is far and away the best sports film that we have watched on this podcast.
Well, obviously you're aware I'm going to disagree with that, but I also have some opinions, and I now feel like I've always been aware of this movie, and I'm shocked I had never seen it until now.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you know what it was about? Did you know No Crying in Baseball was from this?
Of course I knew there's no crying in baseball. I knew Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell. I didn't know as much as I thought. I just knew it's a women's baseball league, and I presumed enough to know that like it must be during wartime and when there was actual women's baseball. Yeah, I think I just, like I said, I've been generally aware of it, but had never really watched it. I think the two things I knew were No Crying in Baseball and the scene where Tom Hanks is peeing. That's about it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this a movie that your mom loves?
I would think not, because otherwise I probably would have seen it growing up at some point. I assume, I don't know if my mom's ever seen it even, because I don't think I've ever heard her really discuss it. But thinking about what I knew going into this movie and thinking about having seen posters for this movie, you know what my big problem with this movie is?
What?
It's sort of two problems in one. First, I understand marketing wise, Madonna is the bigger name. Tom Hanks is a huge name, even though not an Academy Award winner yet. No, but still massive name. And obviously Gina Davis is she's our protagonist, our main star. But the fact that Lori Petty is not the other person on like all of these posters, she is the star of this movie as well. And quite honestly, if I was to have a big problem with the movie, Kit should probably be the main star of the movie. Like, we should be more from her point of view, I kind of feel like.
Okay, here's the thing that I disagree with you about. The movie opens with Dottie as an old lady
Mhm.
going to this Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony for the Women's League.
Mhm.
And so we see the action of the film as a flashback of Dottie. So it's her memory of how it all unfolds, which is why we're seeing things from her perspective and why she is our protagonist. So
I'm
what you're
aware. Go ahead.
suggesting is that you think it should open with Kit getting ready to go to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
No, instead, I think get rid of that opening entirely. Have a start in 1943 with the sisters. At the end, you can still flash forward to show them reuniting at the Hall of Fame. Absolutely fine. The framing device isn't that important. It's sweet and nice, and it, gives the flowers to a lot of the real people who are in that scene and stuff like that. I don't think that's essential to the movie at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I like I typically don't like plot devices like that, where it's
mhm.
like we start today and then we go back in time because it does feel a little bit like so she stands there and the whole story flashes back to her, right? You know what I mean? It's
I'm
sort of like
now I'm thinking of plot devices, Gav, though, and I'm just picturing her like in the split with the ball coming down, going, "You're probably wondering how I got here." Like,
right. Like I just think all of that is garbage. But I do think it works in this film. And what I like is the anticipation of like, where is she going? Why is she going there alone? Why does her mom say she's been stuck in her room? Like, or why does the mom, not her mom, her daughter, why are they saying like you haven't seen Aunt Kit in a while? Like, I think it does a good job of like setting up what is a tremendous payoff in the end. Because I don't know about you, but when Dottie and Kit hug, I fucking lose it.
you know what I sort of don't like about it? And obviously we're in spoilers already since we're talking about the very end of the movie and all that, but for me, like I get at the end that Kit wants to stay and wants to give her all to baseball while Dottie wants to go be with Bob, her husband, sure, fine. What I didn't like is, and there's only one little thing that at all dissuades me of this idea. The movie made me feel like they did not see each other for the next 40 or 50 years until they're back at the Hall of Fame. And the only reason I can think maybe that's not true is some of Kit's children in her obviously large family go, it's Aunt Dottie or whatever. Like they've met her before at least.
Yeah.
But I was like, I understand that they had a rivalry. And I think that's why it's huge that at the end, Kit gets to grow into her own and have that feeling. But there should be no reason that Kit never came home and they never spent time with each other. And that's
Well,
sort of how it felt to me.
but here's the thing, in the very beginning of the movie, and you likely missed this because you weren't looking for it,
Maybe.
the daughter says to her mother, Dottie, you should go. You never get to spend a lot of time with Aunt Kit or something along those lines. Like you don't get to see her very often.
Yeah.
And I think what they're trying to point out is that when Dottie left to go home to go be with Bob, Kit stayed to play baseball in Rockville or wherever she was. And that's presumably where she met her husband and settled down and had her children. So they just
Yeah.
live very far away from one another. But it doesn't seem at all like they haven't seen each other. It just seems like they don't get to spend a lot of time together.
And I think that is probably what it is. And I probably wasn't noticing that in the beginning because I don't even know who Kit is yet.
Yes,
But
yes.
I will say just the vibe I got at the end was like, it's been 40 years. Like I was like, what the fuck? Like I was like, you
Yeah.
said you could
I
come
could see that.
home.
I think
But
upon
you're
second
right.
watch,
Yes.
you would realize.
I don't think
So
you're wrong about that.
I want to go back to this idea of it not being the best sports movie that we've watched because here's the thing. What this movie does really well that I think all of the other sports movies that we've watched have fallen short on is this pays such beautiful homage to the sport of baseball. You see so many complete plays, and I think the choreography and how they do it is wonderful, but it's not a movie about baseball where you just hear them talk about how the game went. You see a lot of intricate plays. There are double plays. There is a lot of like fast moving shots from catching it in the outfield, throwing it to second base. The second baseman is the cutoff man, throwing it home, and the out at home plate. There's so much like we were watching it, and like I said in the beginning, because Corey has been watching a lot of baseball, he was like, oh my God, this is like such an accurate play, right? Like this could have really happened, or whatever. And I think it did a really, really good job. And there were a lot of montages of different games, whether it was Kit and Dottie before they went professional or the tryouts or they're practicing or the actual games and then the World Series. And I think you saw the characters get better. I think you saw, obviously Tom Hanks become much more invested. You saw so much change and growth, both internal of the sport and external of the sport. And I just don't think any other sports movie did that as well.
Here's what I'll give you, Gab. I will agree it is the best sports movie we've done solely on sports coverage and at just the sport pure level. I will say the movie's thoroughly entertaining, but it's definitely more shallow than other sports movies we watched in terms of depth of character. And that's fine. There's a place for that as well, because this movie is not looking to give me the deepest characters of all time and a deep exploration of them. It's entertaining, and it really, if it's going to give me depth about anyone, it does about Dottie and Kit, and it does a pretty dang good job at that. But that's the tough thing about a baseball movie too, is you're going to have at a minimum 9 people you're talking about. So it's hard to make me invested in 9 different people because it's just a lot of room to be discussed. I don't know. But I will give you that it is the best at just showing its sport.
I'll take that.
That is fair. We have compromised.
I'll take it.
Here's a question I want to ask you, another thing about the end of this movie, and not about the plot device, the framing device. So, obviously, you're well aware I do research after the movie. I'm watching interviews and stuff like that. At the very end of this movie, I had a small problem with, Game 7 of the World Series is Kit is the one pitching. And I think first they should have made a way bigger deal of that right from the start. And I also don't like the fact that Gina Davis comes back just for Game 7. Like, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I can get past that very easily. My big problem was that they sort of make a big deal out of it once Dottie's at the plate, but I'm like, well, yeah, it's the last play of the game. It's a big deal regardless, but Kit being the pitcher should have been a big deal the whole time. And she should have been like lighting them up the whole time. Like, this should be a 0-0 game. You know what I mean? Going to the ninth inning. Doesn't matter. But what I was thinking, and this is before, like, I have this in my notes before the at-bat starts. I do not want Dottie helping Kit. Fuck that. Kit's got to overcome it herself. And then Dottie gives the same thing that at the very beginning we saw, high fastball. She can't hit him, can't lay off him. And I'm literally writing during the at-bat, let's go, Lori Petty. Let's go, Kit. And I've seen Gina Davis talk about that now and she talks about it like, I didn't realize it was a thing that people question, because people are saying, obviously Kit gets the game-winning hit and she's the game-winning run because she runs Dottie over and makes her drop the ball when Dottie's the catcher and she's up after allowing the run. So I saw Gina Davis get asked, does Dottie drop the ball on purpose to help her sister? Which to me is like an egregious question, even, because in my mind, it so undoes the importance of the moment if Dottie was like, let me do you this favor, kid.
Yeah.
But Gina Davis in the interview, like she says like, well, I won't say one way or another. And then she goes, they asked her like, well, what would be your reason for each one? And Gina Davis gives this, long, good answer about how she had grown out of the sport and grown into the person she wanted to be. And that Kit could, she could help Kit move on, type of thing. And what was her reason against? And she was like, because Kit hit her real hard. And I'm like, okay, so I know which way you're leaning, Gina Davis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She didn't play it that well. But to me, it has to be Kit's moment, that Kit like finally overcame her sister, who has been better than her in every aspect, in every part of their lives up to that point. So let me ask you, have you ever thought about it as, you don't know if Dottie did it? Have you ever thought about Dottie did drop the ball on purpose? Like, what was your thought?
So I very much lean toward Dottie did not drop the ball on purpose, because I don't think, first of all, realistically, in that moment, as you're bracing to get run the fuck over, you're probably clenching so hard that I think dropping the ball intentionally it would have to happen before the impact. And the movie specifically shows impact as ball is dropped, not ball is dropped and then she's hit. You know what I mean? It's not like she like panics and loses the ball. I also think that we have to imagine that there is a level of professionalism that has to be maintained because think about how hard they're working to get the entertainment factor up so that people watch and they don't get canceled. I think there's a level of professionalism that is expected that you're not going to throw a game
Game
in the
7 of the World
World
Series.
Series, right? Because of, your sister. And I especially think that up to that point, they had been in such a tumultuous relationship, right? Like their last meeting, Kit stormed out and was all mad, and Dottie was like, fine, then go. I don't give a shit. And so I don't think at that moment she was like, let's make amends. Like that she had intentionally told the pitcher how to strike her out. Like it's not,
Yes.
Kit overcame that, of course, and didn't strike out. And it's about goddamn time. But I do not think it was intentional. I think maybe after the fact, she wasn't upset and she was like, well, you win some, you lose some. I'm happy
Yeah.
for you. This is really what you wanted. But I don't believe that she did it on purpose. I think if she did it on purpose, it would have been a little bit more clear.
I think if she did it on purpose, it almost ruins the movie for me. Like to
Oh,
me,
yeah.
like I didn't even think of that as a question until I saw it asked in interviews multiple times.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, it undoes so much important to their relationship and to both Kit and Dottie's journey. And I think one thing we know about Dottie is she's a fucking ball player and she would not have done that on purpose. But if Kit was going to do it, I think she would be happy for Kit. I agree. And, this is why I'm saying I think like Kit almost to me is better as the main character because she's the protagonist who's overcoming. Whereas Dottie, it's sort of easy for her the whole time. Like she is the
Yeah.
best player in the league the whole time.
But I really like that Kit is not our protagonist because if Kit were our protagonist, this would be like Rudy. You know what I mean? It would be like,
And what's the problem with that, Gab?
I have a major problem with that. I love that this is from the perspective of somebody who's really good and is trying to make, because you know what? Everybody's really good. Rosie
Yes.
O'Donnell is really good. Madonna is really good. Everyone should be really good. They're professional athletes.
Well, I think Kit is
So-
really good too. Yeah.
She is.
Mhm.
But Kit's problem is that she has an inferior. Oh my God, I don't think this is recording to my microphone. It is. She has an inferiority complex. And you know what? You are never going to make it if you have an inferiority complex. And so I think she needed to really get the fuck over that. And it seems as though she had a long, illustrious career after her sister left the league because she no longer had an inferiority complex. And I think sometimes we need more stories from the perspective of somebody who's like, and you know what? This is very inherently present in womanhood. So let me give you a brief understanding of this because you've never been a woman. Let me enlighten you. It is so insanely common for women to be jealous of one another that oftentimes being good at something or being the best at something inherently makes you the villain. And so where you're saying like, I want to see the movie from the perspective of Kit who overcomes and whatever, I think it's really cool to see this from the perspective of Dottie, who is like, there's nothing wrong with me being good at what I do. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then you're going to have to figure out how to get over that. And I'm not perfect. I make mistakes and, I don't always win. But like, notice how Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell are not, I think their names were like Doris and May, are not excluding me and jealous of me and angry of me because they're very secure in the fact that they are also professional ball players and very good. So you're going to have to man up, so to speak, and lean into your own talents and not be so goddamn jealous of me because you can't only like predicate your wins on my losses. And that happens with women all the time.
I don't think I disagree at all. Well, obviously, I don't disagree with your opinion just then, but I think the movie you brought up the inferiority complex, and it does a really good job of still showing many moments of Kit going through that. Even her at the end in the dugout, like really having a hard time before she gets back up at the plate and has that opportunity, just dealing with the fact that like not only did I blow it, but of course it had to be to Dottie, like, and just the frustration and anxiety she's going through. So I do think it gives you enough of that. That's why I feel like I get that Madonna, is a major star, but she's not that important to this movie. You know what I mean?
Well, hold on, hold your horses. How how mind-blowingly good is she in this movie?
She's fine.
No, I completely disagree. I think she is so talented. She is, because here's the thing. Typically, you see these like stunt casting roles, and it's like Madonna, and people pay to go
It's
see
not the
Madonna
first
in
time
this
she had
movie.
acted, though.
I know, but this is the first time she was worth a damn, I think. That opinion is founded on nothing, by the way. I'm just both pulling that out
I
of
was
my
gonna
ass. But
say, yeah.
she is so good in this role. And typically when you see a somebody who is famous for something that isn't acting, right? And they're in a movie, you can kind of see them trying to act. And it's like, oh no, she's really doing it. She's really just performing and is so believable as this character. And her dancing is obviously, right?
Yes, very
Amazing.
impressive.
And I think she does a really good job in as a baseball player. Like, obviously they're not really playing, but like she doesn't look out of place catching, throwing, hitting. Like it's so
They
good.
they all had to go through baseball auditions, and apparently she was one of the weaker ones. That's why her character originally was like, I think, a third baseman, and they moved her to the outfield just because it was easier.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna bring up a fact now because it's also gonna turn into an opinion. So one of the
Okay.
facts I had for later, Marissa Tomei filmed an audition tape of her playing baseball, being coached by Joe Pesci on the set of My Cousin Vinny. But according to Penny Marshall, she just wasn't a ball player. And if you're gonna have somebody who's not that good a ball player anyway, I would instantly and gladly replace Madonna in this with Marissa Tomei. And I think she would be just as good, if not obviously much better.
I can't
Academy
disagree with you
Award
on
winner,
that.
not to sound
I
like Three
can't
Six
disagree with you
Mafia.
on that. But I do think Madonna holds her own so well.
She does. And I think for her and Rosie O'Donnell, this is, they are both not extremely experienced actors at that time. And I think they both do a good job. Rosie O'Donnell is a bit of a caricature, like with a super thick accent that she's constantly talking with. But they both were fun. And that's the thing. This movie, every character besides Dottie and Kit is pretty much just fun. Like there's not a lot of depth. We have one moment where we see um Betty Spaghetti, I think, is the character.
Yep.
We see her husband die, which, quite frankly, I think they telegraphed it a little too much. Like when Jimmy Dugan has the telegram about like one of you has a dead spouse, and he's walking back there, and there's this shot that has Dottie perfectly framed, but also in the frame was Betty Spaghetti. I think it also goes against it that I knew in the credits it said Bill Pullman, and they had seen the photo that Bill Pullman is her husband, and I'm like, I have not seen Bill Pullman. Like, it's like it's not going to be Bill Pullman. And also, just like framing wise, I just kept thinking to myself, like, she's a little too prominent right there. It's a little too like, don't look at me. Like,
Yeah, but didn't it give you a moment of like, who's it gonna be?
yes, until it gets to that shot, I was like, who's it going to be? I don't think it's going to be Dottie, but like once it showed me Dottie, I was like, it's not Dottie.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
which not that you really need that much drama there, but there's really, I'm trying to think of any other like very dramatic moments with other characters. There's not that much depth
How
to the rest of
about
them.
I can't think of her name, the really ugly girl,
Marla.
Marla. First of all, how much does Marla look like Bobby Moynihan?
Oh my God, a little bit. But poor Marla. Like,
I know.
there's nothing wrong with Marla. The movie's like, we gotta make her out to be a monster.
Yeah, no, she's fine. I think the one of my favorite scenes in this movie is when they make their pit stop on their way to Chicago to scout Marla,
Yeah, with
and
John
the
Lovitz.
hat is down and she's hitting. She is raking, okay? Like
That's
these
the exact
balls are
term I was thinking of.
raking. These balls are going busting through the gym window, and the father, who is an actor that it has been in a bunch of things.
Well, I feel like because of how many actors are in so many things, I just didn't even say it. Like when we get to the facts, there's like three actors who I say other things they're in, and then I was like, I'm just gonna name them. There's too many.
Yeah.
Use your
Yeah, yeah.
IMDb.
But anyway, he's been in a bunch of things. He says, she's raking, and he goes, "All right, Marla, now lefty." And she's a switch hitter, and she goes to the left side and continues raking. And you're like, oh my God, this bitch is good. Okay. She is good. All the boys are like, oh, because she is the best baseball player they have. And they turn her down. John Lovitz, the baseball scout, is like, sorry, can't do it because she's not conventionally attractive. And she cries, and the dad is like, she's the best ball player out there. Like, come on. And Kit and Dottie are like, we're not leaving without her because she is good. And thank goodness, because she makes it.
Which I will say, I would have loved to have had more Marla, because I feel like they really start to give you more of that character, and then they're like, and she's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I
I
think it's
guess maybe
nice.
that's also true to the time period it exists in, where like she's got a man and she didn't really feel like, baseball was her whole life anyway, so she just goes. But I really liked Marla, and the scene with Marla that really made me feel something was that first scene, because obviously you get that moment where you see she's this great ball player, but then hearing her dad say that like it's his fault that he didn't raise her girly
Yep.
enough because
Yep.
that was all he knew how to do was so goddamn sad.
Yeah.
And like him apologizing for her not being pretty enough and them saying goodbye, and he says nothing's ever going to happen here, you got to go where things happen. I was like, oh God, no, like
So good.
that was a great moment in this movie that is otherwise very light for the most part.
How great is it when Marla is singing to the guy she ends up marrying in the club, and she is like, not, it's like, you've had one too many drinks and this is not cute.
She's also just extending her arms at him in a way of like when vampires in movies try to hypnotize people.
Yes.
She's like, see me, like, but it works.
It's so funny. Yeah, I think it does speak to the times that like baseball is what she wants to do because she doesn't think she can get a man. And then when she gets a man, she's like, now I'm going to go have kids. And she comes back at the end and you see old lady Marla, and it's very nice. How about
she talks about their son is, running the job, the warehouse that like her husband had started type of thing.
Yeah. What about the little boy?
That made it, that got me a little bit too. I was like, oh no, still well.
It got me. It got me good. Yeah.
Which I really like. I like included her at the end, but she's not like a huge actress, but the one who's crying in baseball and Stillwell's mother is Biddy Schramm, who I was like, I had just watched Monk not that long ago, and she's one of the stars of Monk at the beginning of the show, and I was like, oh my God, it's Sharona.
Yeah. I love Monk, by the way.
Monk is great. If we did TV shows on this, we would totally do Monk, but we don't because we don't have 100 hours to prepare each week.
Zach likes Monk, right? Or is he just too similar to Monk?
Zach loves Monk, and he's the reason I watch Monk, and Zach can often be heard to say, it's a gift and a curse.
Yeah. Okay, who else? I really love
quickly, because you had gone there, let's talk about John Lovitz, who in like 10 minutes of the screen time eats up the fucking movie for while he's there.
Yeah. I think John Lovitz is such a gift to the world. And he doesn't have to do a whole lot. Like him just being John Lovitz is more than enough.
You know what? John Lovitz, it's not like he brings you like very different thing each time you see him. He's sort of given the same John Lovitz each time, but it works more than well enough each time that we're all happy to see him come back on screen.
Yeah.
Like whenever I see any John Lovitz appearance in a movie, I'm always like, it's John Lovitz. Like I've never been upset to get some John Lovitz.
Yeah. And that's the thing. When the opening credits are rolling and they're listing the cast, Corey was like, John Lovitz. And I was like, yeah. It's just it's a treat every time.
It also feels like that they clearly had more of him, because there are multiple times in the few scenes he's in where his head is turned and like it's clearly not what he was saying at the moment, but they're like, throw in another one of the jokes he said. Slide that bad boy in there. We got to get all the audio of John Lovitz we can.
Yes. Yeah. It's great. I think he does a great job.
We love Lovitz.
We love Lovitz. How about, I do think Rosie O'Donnell does a good job, although it is heavy-handed to try to be from Staten Island. She is from Long Island, though, no?
I think you're right. I'm not 100% sure, so I'm going to Google it real quick.
I do believe that she is from Nassau County, Long Island.
Comac.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Nassau?
I should know, but
it's
I
like
don't.
Border. Over the borderline.
It's Suffolk.
Okay, but not by much.
There's a joke in this movie, by the way, which is almost exactly the same as a joke in Miss Congeniality. This came first, but I think Miss Congeniality does it better.
Okay, what is the joke?
So it's obviously right around the time they're talking about etiquette school, and they're talking about all these things where they're looking at the girls and they go, the eyebrows, thin and separate. There should be two.
Mhm.
And Michael Caine just does a better job delivering it. Eyebrows. There should be two of them. Like it's just
Yes.
he just gives a better delivery in that moment. Not that
Yeah,
like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
any other comparison to be made between these two movies, but my brain went
Yeah.
straight to it.
That is funny. Um, I think another thing that I really love about this movie is that it doesn't do the typical like women can do it too thing where it's like they're never like look at how amazing these broads can actually hit a ball. It's like it very much is predicated on the fact that these women are really really good.
The movie says to you, of course they can play baseball. We just got to get people to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem isn't whether or not they can play, it's whether or not they can get an audience.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I like about the movie, which apparently I'll have to address a little bit more in the facts. Um, Tom Hanks as Jimmy Dugan, he sort of becomes better by the end of the film, but he's obviously like a very deeply tormented person who is clearly an alcoholic. I was very concerned the whole time that there was going to be romantic involvement between Tom Hanks and anyone. I was
Yeah.
like, don't you do it, movie. Don't let that
Yeah.
happen.
I did think he and Dottie were gonna have something. Like watching it again as an adult, I was like,
Yes.
what?
Which would have been a monstrous mistake.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Um, I there was something else that I wanted to say regarding this movie. Oh, another moment that I think really tugs on the heartstrings is when Rosie O'Donnell's father comes to the World Series and
Gonna
like
buy her steak
he-
dinner.
Yeah, he's like, I'm surprising her. I just thought that was so sweet.
It was. So I feel like I totally undercut your thunder there, but I wanted to say it.
No, no, no. It was great. I'm glad you said it. Okay. So I think any other opinions that I have about this movie, really the number one thing I wanted to bring to the table was how much this movie is a great homage to the sport of baseball. It doesn't pull any punches. It doesn't like just talk about these women and then like also mention that they play baseball. It is really a baseball movie. And I think it's up there with some of the best baseball movies because it makes you love the sport. And I don't think there's a lot of like, and these broads get into mischief. Like, I think it really is a baseball movie.
It's also just, for the most part, very pure entertainment. And it's, it goes along with the director who we'll talk about, and we'll talk about other movies that she's done. But I, for the entirety of this movie, had a good time. You know what I mean? And I think that's a nice thing that, like, if I'm not going to be going through a lot of emotion throughout the movie, if the movie's just giving me a good time the whole time, obviously that's the goal. So if we're nearing the end of opinion time, I'm going to point out a couple of quotes that I really like real quick. Bill Pullman at the end, being in the audience for the World Series, going, "That's my wife." I was like,
Yep.
"Oh, that's so nice." Tom Hanks, after screaming at Bitty Schramm, I don't remember her character's name, after he has, his whole "there's no crying in baseball," and she,
Yeah.
one of them tells them, like, "I think you should talk to the women nicer," which is, I think, before he calls the umpire a penis with a hat.
Yeah.
But he has his moment where he has to try and give her something again, and he says, "Still missing the cutoff, man. That's something I'd like you to work on." And Tom Hanks just does such a good job of like holding back the frustration.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that delivery. That's something that I'd like to talk about. Tom Hanks as the drunk and disorderly Jimmy Dugan. I think it's rare that we see Tom Hanks not be, I don't want to say squeaky clean, but we really don't see him play roles like this a ton. Although I think if I really racked my brain, I could come up with a few. But I
I've
think
got like a couple, but it's more often than not, especially in the earlier time period of his career, he was always very clean.
yeah. And I think what I love about this is that this is not a Jimmy Dugan movie. This is not a movie where Jimmy Dugan is redeemed. He gets a little better, right?
Yeah.
And I do think that they do a really good job of being true to the times where like he doesn't really respect women and he definitely respects them more toward the end, but we don't get to see this like he doesn't have a love scene with Dottie where he realizes what a terrible person he's been and he respects the shit out of her. Like we kind of just find out that he dies, presumably alone.
Yeah, a little bit sad there, but you're right. He doesn't become a total feminist. The last we
Yeah.
see of him, when we do see him, is him saying, "I was offered another job, but you know what? I got a job." And like, he doesn't he grows to respect them as ball players. And you know what? That's enough for him because he is not the main character. And
Yeah.
I appreciated that even though he's Tom Hanks, the movie was not like, he doesn't take over the movie at any time. He just does a
Yeah.
great job supporting them.
Yeah. And I love that. I respect that. I'm glad it's not a movie about Jimmy Dugan or about Tom Hanks or about this man's journey to feminism because it was 1943. That wasn't going to happen. But he does, in his own way, learn and grow. But it is not, the movie is not reliant on that. And I love that. And I think it's really good to see Tom Hanks kind of start as a scumbag and more or less kind of stay a scumbag, you know?
It's slightly less scummy, but I do
Yeah.
have two more Hanks involved quotes that I'm going to say real quick. First, Hanks's autograph to the kids who bring in the baseball. Do you remember what it was?
Oh, no, what is it? It's funny.
The child reads it back. Avoid the clap, Jimmy Dugan.
Yes, avoid
That's
the
good
clap.
advice.
Yes.
And the other one was, I think it's Anne Ramsey's character, who, again, I don't remember some of the more random players' names by this point, says, has anyone seen my new red hat? And he goes, oh, piss on your hat. And she goes, well, that seemed uncalled for. And she just does a really good job of like seeming so like, I don't know where that came from, that I liked it.
That's great.
Yeah, I'll talk more about her and the cast when we get to the facts, which is it time to get to the facts?
I think it is.
I want the truth!
Face the facts, ducks.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
Let's start with our ratings. IMDb gives it a 7.3 out of 10. On the tomato meter, it gets an 82% with an average rating of 7 out of 10, 67 fresh reviews, 15 rotten. The audience score of 84% with an average score of 4.1 out of 5. Had a $40 million budget and it grossed $132 million. The critics' consensus, sentimental and light, but still thoroughly charming, A League of Their Own is buoyed by solid performances from a wonderful cast. Roger Ebert gave it 3 stars. The movie has a real bittersweet charm. Owen Gleiberman from Entertainment Weekly, from its jokey one-note characters to its endless baseball montages, A League of Their Own is all flash, all surface. It's a great big trailer for itself.
Oh, wow. Okay, sir.
He came out a bit harsh on that. Like, I love how you were like, I love how much this movie loves baseball. And he was like, enough baseball.
Yeah,
Get to the
like
movie.
I went to this baseball movie and all they gave me was a baseball movie.
He was like, there's no baseball in baseball movies.
There's no baseball in movies.
Peter Travers from Rolling Stone. At her best, Marshall captures the camaraderie of these women in ways that rip the film out of its cliched roots.
I would agree with that.
Vincent Canby from New York Times. One of the year's most cheerful, most relaxed, most easily enjoyable comedies. It's a serious film that's lighter than air. A very funny movie that manages to score a few points for feminism in passing.
Yeah.
I do also like one scene we didn't acknowledge that we do have to real quick. Obviously, this team is all white because that was what they were forced to be at the time. And the movie does give a quick nod to the fact that there were clearly incredible female non-white players when you see this one African-American woman who throws the ball in and they're like, oh, she's got a cannon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't say that because that's not the style they talked at the time. They
Yeah.
weren't like, oh man, I bet that bitch can break.
Yeah.
Which I don't think they would have phrased it that way anyway, but I digress.
They made it clear to us that that bitch could rake. And you know,
Yes.
I part of me was like, do I not remember there being black players? But I did not misremember. There are none. But it was a nice moment. And I think it's not heavy-handed. It doesn't become like, and also a film about race equality. It just does it has a moment.
It's a nice moment where it spends 20 seconds to be somewhat realistic, but also point out, you know,
The
point
inequality.
that inequality out. Yes.
Yeah, because it is a film that does, you know, I think have a strong stance toward equality. Like, obviously, I think the film is very pro equal rights, and so it would be doing a disservice to that if they didn't also mention the people whose rights were not equal. Despite the fact that, you know, this is such a big moment for women in professional sports. So I do love that moment. I'm glad they did it, and I think they did it beautifully.
And now I can get to our silly letterbox reviews. Branson Reese. I like that Tom Hanks' alcoholism never really gets fixed and he just dies. I found that very period appropriate.
Yes, agreed.
Lucy. I love the part where they have their own league. Which, one other thing, at some point they're like, they made the playoffs. And I'm like, it's a league with 4 teams. Did somebody not make the playoffs? Like,
Right.
This one's from Demi. I can't believe this is the first time I've seen this movie. The flashback framing device is as unnecessary as it does in any movie, and the movie seems a bit unfocused. Why is Gina Davis's Dottie the main character when it should clearly be Lori Petty's kid? Why does Tom Hanks's character and a lot of the other characters go through no real growth that we see and just sort of become good over time? But it's so sweet and impressive and pleasant. I almost cried at the scene where Shirley Baker can't read well enough to see if her name is on the board.
Oh my God. Also that. And I love when Madonna is teaching her how to read by letting her read the like smut novel.
Yeah.
I will say this, that strikes a chord with me in particular because I don't know if you recall,
You can't
but
read.
I do not know how to read. Yes. And so it really hits home for me. No, everybody knows you're the one that can't read. In 2015, which is the last time the Mets went to the World Series, Wilmer Flores and actually a number of the players on the team at the time had tutors to learn English. And in the dugout and on the bus and on the plane, English speaking members of the team would take turns tutoring them. And it just really, really melted my fucking heart. And it just made me so happy. And so seeing that kind of brought me back. And I was like, baseball is friendship.
One other thing I want to point out about Shirley Baker. Shirley Baker played by very much a character actor, Ann Cusack, the sister of John and Joan Cusack.
Interesting.
Yeah. I didn't think it was worth going into like her credits, but I just always think it's cool to be like, another Cusack, look.
Have I mentioned to you, and I hope this is okay to say on the podcast, I think it is, and no one is going to find out anyway, but one of my clients is a girl whose last name is Baio, and wouldn't you know it, she's Scott Baio's cousin.
Huh.
And I
I
said,
don't think that would be bad anyway. But go on.
yeah. I said, "Oh my God, my childhood best friend, Kristen, works in a hospital with his wife." And she was like, "No, no, she doesn't." And then I realized that I had confused Scott Baio and who's the other one?
Tony
The Karate
Danza?
Kid?
Oh,
No.
Ralph Macchio?
Ralph Macchio. And she was like, "Yeah, it happens all the time."
But if I had to pick one, I'm picking Macchio all day.
I mean, yeah, but she's Baio.
Joni loves Chachi. Yeah. Baio's
So
fine.
anyway, yeah. So it's a small world, but yeah, funny.
Last one, Anna. Back when Hollywood movies were about real things like dreams and teamwork and Madonna.
I love that. It's so true.
So the movie was directed by Penny Marshall, who also directed Renaissance Man and two other movies we've talked about already, Big and Jumpin' Jack Flash.
So pause for a second because there's a lot of Marshall, right? There's Gary Marshall, there's Penny Marshall. You got to remind me how they're related, and you got to remind me
Those two are
Gary
brother
Marshall
and sister.
was in Gary Marshall is Watch Your Fingers.
Yes, he had nothing to do with directing that movie, but he did direct Georgia Rule.
Uh-huh.
He's in Watch Your Fingers and he's in Jumpin' Jack Flash. He's the cop who's interviewing Whoopi at the station, I believe.
Right, when she has her meltdown. But
Yes.
here's the thing. Which one of them is better? Which one of them is more famous? How does this happen? Like, I'm so confused.
They both had pretty prolific careers.
Who came first? Not who's older. Who came first in terms of like
I would
being a
think
famous
him.
director?
And I think he definitely directed more. She might have acted a little bit more.
Is she in this movie? Does she play a role
She's
in
not
this
in
movie?
the movie at all.
Is he?
Yeah, he's Walter Harvey, the commissioner of the league.
Oh, he's old.
Or one of the
He has
owners, not the
been
commissioner.
old for so fucking long.
He was always old, yeah.
He was born old.
Yeah, he definitely directed more than she did. But even with only having like, I'd say Penny Marshall only has four huge movies she directed. The three I said and this one. I don't think he did that much more directing wise than she did. I think they both had really successful careers. I would be glad to be either one of them.
Well, yeah.
No, they're both dead. But
They're
besides
both
that,
dead?
Yeah,
But what about Watch Your Fingers?
he's been dead 8 years.
How old is Watch Your Fingers?
Orange County, I think it was 2004.
Oh, all right. All right. Anyway. All
The
right.
screenplay is by Lowell Gans and Babalu Mandel, who also wrote City Slickers, Splash, Spies Like Us, and Fever Pitch, which was a much less successful baseball movie.
I did see that in the movie theaters, and I think I liked it. But
I saw it in the theater, and I rewatched it recently because
Oh.
I was just a glutton for punishment. And how do you think a movie starring Jimmy Fallon was?
Bad?
It's bad. It's real bad, Gab.
Okay.
The movie stars Tom Hanks, who you may know from Forrest Gump, Castaway, and Saving Private Ryan. Gina Davis, you may know from Thelma and Louise, The Long Kiss Goodnight, and The Fly. Lori Petty, who you may know from Tank Girl, Point Break, Free Willy, and is the voice of Livewire from Superman the Animated Series.
Oh.
The movie also stars Madonna, Rosie O'Donnell, Megan Cavanagh, which Megan Cavanagh is Marla. She was also the voice of Judy Neutron from Jimmy Neutron.
Oh my God.
I just found that cool. I was like, that's kind of familiar. Biddy Schramm, Ann Cusack, David Strathairn, Gary Marshall, John Lovitz, Bill Pullman, and Ann Ramsey. The music was by Hans Zimmer, but it was conducted by Shirley Walker, who did the music for another movie we reviewed, Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh, geez.
I'm throwing it in there, Gab.
Right.
Now I can get to the fun facts.
Please do.
The movie is dedicated to the members of the AAGPBBL.
American Professional Girls Baseball
The
Players.
All-American Girls Professional Baseball League.
Thank you. Sorry, I knew it when I saw it, but you said it out loud and I didn't have a visual, and I was like, girl.
I feel like you have to say it as though you're Patches from Dodgeball going, dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. The All-American Girls Professional Baseball League.
Have you, first of all, I've never seen that movie. Second of all, you know Hank Azaria was my neighbor, right? Have I said that 100 times
Yeah,
on this
we talked
podcast?
about that like 100 times on the podcast.
Okay, good. He also a giant Mets fan, put
I
out
saw.
the best Mets fan video I've ever seen.
I think I
Continue.
saw it, yeah, on Instagram.
Yeah, he did it as I probably sent it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During filming of the World Series games, stars took turns entertaining the unpaid extras. Tom Hanks did puppet shows over the dugout. Rosie O'Donnell did stand-up, and various actors pretended to be Madonna and sang her songs after the singer balked at performing for fans.
Oh no, Madonna.
I think I might have more about Madonna being a real dick. The storyline was inspired by the career of baseball legend Dottie Collins. During World War II, she played for the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League and pitched 17 shutouts during her 6-year career.
Wow.
During the scene where Tom Hanks is peeing, not even Hanks himself knew when he was going to be done. Penny Marshall was in a stall with a hose and a bucket making the noise.
That's funny.
When the characters are at the Baseball Hall of Fame and seen playing as the credits roll, those are real original players from the league portrayed in the film.
You know, I wanted to say they did such a good job of casting people that, like, I guess when I watched it, I assumed they weren't the real people. I thought they were actors. So when you saw like Rosie O'Donnell's character, you were like, holy shit, you could tell right away who that was.
Yeah, they did such a good job that at the very beginning, I was like, this is really good old makeup on Gina Davis. Really good. And, I didn't realize until I was reading the facts, Gina Davis dubbed over that actress. So it is Gina Davis's voice, even when she's an older woman. But I was like really convinced. I was like, wow, this is really impressive. And once I realized at the very end that none of them were the actresses in old woman makeup, I was like, so it's probably not just Gina Davis.
But was that the lady? Was that Dottie whatever?
No, Lynn Cartwright, I believe, was the actress's name.
Oh, okay.
So there was a couple of actual actresses, but when you just see them playing, it's the real people playing.
Wow. I was shook. I was like, when it was Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell as old ladies next to each other, I was like, obviously.
Yes, they did a very good job casting that.
Yeah.
Dolores Pickles Dries, Pickles was her nickname. The lady in the Cooperstown bleachers who referred to Dottie as the best player in the league was a pitcher for the Rockford Peaches from 1952 to 54.
Wow.
The film portrays the league as initially unpopular and unprofitable until demeaning gimmicks are used to attract male audiences. In reality, the league was popular and profitable from the start, largely because it played in towns in the upper Midwest that had no way of watching a live baseball game. Eventually, it grew into a 10-team, 2-division league. The advent of televised baseball games in the early 50s would lead to the demise in the popularity of the league.
That makes sense.
Yeah. The studio wanted Jimmy and Dottie to get together. There's even a kiss at one point in a deleted scene, but Penny Marshall did not want to distract audiences with a love story where the main protagonist cheats on her husband serving overseas, so it was cut to retain likability for Gina's character Dottie.
I could not agree with that decision more.
I saw the deleted scene and I was just like, no.
Yeah.
Like it was just, no, this is no good.
Yeah.
After league tryouts were completed, all the players are sent to Charm and Beauty School. This is factual, as the real AAGPBBL characters players were sent to Helena Rubinstein Beauty Salon to be made over and attended Helena Rubinstein's evening charm school after afternoon practices, where proper etiquette, hygiene, and league's dress code were taught and reinforced.
I thought because it's Helen's, I thought you were going to say we're sent to hell.
No. As far as I know, Helena Rubinstein is a very nice lady.
Presumably Jewish.
Presumably. In Evansville, Indiana, where the Racine Games and World Series were filmed, Madonna was so rude to citizens, hotel and restaurant staff, and other locals that her reputation is still tarnished there. She also spoke poorly of the city in interviews.
That's honestly really surprising. I'm going to say this to you. I don't think you and I are old enough to really have like strong opinions on Madonna. Like, I don't care. I am glad that she inspired all of the artists that I do love. I'm happy that we have pop music, right? But I don't,
Pop music would be dead without Madonna.
Yes, but I don't care either way. But it was so nice to see her do a really good job. Because obviously, like, Britney Spears can't act, right? Christina Aguilera can't act. Like, we have Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga's the closest I can think of, which
Yeah.
for her whole career has been compared to stealing Madonna's thunder type of thing.
Right, which is crazy because, come on. But, like, I think
There can't be two talented women who sing and act.
I know, right? Like, there's only room for one, and Madonna's not dead yet. I think Lady Gaga is pretty, like, well known for being really polite and nice and kind and, to her fans and just very down to earth. When I was Hank Azaria's neighbor, I also lived across the street from her restaurant, Joanne, on the Upper West Side, 68th between Columbus and Central Park West.
I didn't know Lady Gaga had a restaurant.
Yeah, she does it. She bought it for her parents. Her parents run it, and it's named Joanne's, which is obviously the name of her aunt that died, and the name of one of her albums. But
I love that you said that obviously, like, oh, of course I know that as well, yes.
Well, that's like a very big thing. People know that about her because
Sorry, I'm not a little monster, Gab.
Yeah, you should be. I love her, but it's disappointing to hear that because Madonna was so good in this movie, I feel like.
She's definitely good in the movie. I feel like the only other movie that I've seen Evita once, and obviously she's good in that, but the movie that always comes to my mind when I think of her is Dick Tracy.
I've never seen either of the two. Let me ask you this. Beaches? Who did that? Cher?
Isn't it Barbra Streisand?
Isn't that like one of the worst movies ever made?
I don't think so. I think it's actually supposed to be a pretty good movie, isn't it?
I don't know.
It's directed by Gary Marshall.
Shut up.
Directed by Gary Marshall and stars Bette Midler.
But who else? There's another woman and she's Madonna or Cher?
Hang on. I'm looking.
Beaches.
I don't see no Madonna, no Cher. Nope.
Wasn't Cher in a movie that was supposed to be the worst movie of all time? Or Madonna was in a movie that was supposed to be the worst movie of all time?
I mean, Cher's probably in a movie that's bad. Like, I can't think of it right now. The only movie I think of from Cher now is Moonstruck.
Yeah. Do we know Madonna's real name?
Good question. To the Google.
Does anybody?
Madonna
Louise
Ciccone?
Ciccone, I guess. I don't know. We should know that.
It's Ciccone. We're not just idiots. Well, we are idiots, but
we are
idiots who
very
can't
much.
pronounce that name.
Have you seen her face lately? It is not good.
Can I tell you my favorite Madonna song?
Oh my God, yeah, but I wonder if it's mine.
Oh, it's not.
How do you know?
She did the theme to the James Bond movie Die Another Day, and
Yeah.
that shit fucking slams. It is awesome.
That whole time period in her career is the best time period of her career because that's also time goes by.
That song's a bop too.
So slowly, yeah. It's the ABBA sample, yeah. And then there's also Hung Up. Oh, that's the name of that song. I'm hanging up on you, waiting for your call, baby, night and day. I'm hung up. That whole time period was the best time period of her career. I don't care what anybody says. I do love La Isla Bonita, which, by the way, what?
It's just the way you said it. You sounded like you were Trump at like a press conference. La Isla Bonita, which means That pretty island. That's the way
Well,
they talk about it.
I don't want to say it like I'm trying to sound like I
No, it
have
was just
that
you said it in
accent,
like such a
Dylan.
you sounded so stunted. You went La Isla Bonita.
How would you say it? Because last time I tried to do an accent, you yelled at me.
La Isla Bonita. It's just you had no flow. It's just each word stopped.
La Isla Bonita. I don't do you feel bonita?
I do not feel Bonita. Okay.
Um, hold on. I'm trying to look for this movie known for. No, I don't see anything. All right.
All right. I think it is it good to get to some verdicts?
Yeah.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence is death.
Dylan, this is my pick, and I stand by it. I think this movie has a lot going for it. Number one, I think it's inherently a good baseball movie. Number two, I think it's inherently a good sports movie. Number three, I think the performances are great. I think it is sweet, and it will tear or tug rather at your heartstrings without being too heavy-handed. I think that it does a really good job of touching on relationships, on feminism, on love and all of those things, love both romantically and otherwise. And I think the most important thing that this movie does really well is it doesn't do a lot of things that would ruin it. And I think ultimately the one thing that we have sort of touched on and not really leaned into is this concept of feminism, right? And of women doing this thing and playing this game that they're not traditionally welcome to do. And I think if this movie really was about broads playing baseball, it would be a little bit too heavy-handed. But it is just it's like you said, of course women can play baseball. Now let's see if anybody wants to watch it. And it's brilliant. And as an aside, I don't know if you will remember this, but in probably like 2014 or 2015, there was a TV show that I think was straight on Hulu or something like that. And it was about the first female Major League Baseball player. So it was about this girl. She was like a young Black woman who was pitching in the all men's Major League Baseball. She was like this incredible pitcher. And it only lasted for a season. And I used to watch it when I was running on the treadmill, and I would sob at every episode because this girl, it was like a modern day Jackie Robinson story where they hated her guts. They did not want her around, but God damn it, was she good.
It's called Pitch. Pitch is the name of the show.
Thank you. It was only one season, right?
10 episodes.
Yeah. Didn't make it, didn't last, people didn't want it. I loved it. And I think what this movie does is it has an air of that, but that's not what it's about. Because no matter how meaningful and lovely and wonderful and heartfelt it is, it's just a bit too much. This movie doesn't do anything too much. And I love it. Top to bottom. I think it's funny. I think it's emotional. I think it'll make you laugh, make you cry. It's entertaining as hell. It's a fabulous movie. The defense rests.
I don't think it's a movie that's really trying to make you cry. It has one or two moments of that. And
You didn't get emotional at the end when the old ladies are playing baseball and hugging?
Really. I really did think to myself, this framing device is totally unnecessary. I do think it's nice that it gives those flowers to some of those, the older ball players.
Mm-hmm.
I do sort of wish that it had given a little bit more importance to Kit, and it obviously does, but just a little bit more. I do wish the marketing had given more importance to Lori Petty. I feel like she really deserved it because I think she's great in the movie, and I think she's an actress who every time I see her pop up, I'm happy to see her. She's no Lovitz, but she's great.
Sure.
Yeah, these are the slightest critiques I have, and besides that, all I can say is it was very thoroughly entertaining, and it's definitely a movie to watch before you die to me. It's one of those movies that at some point I'm gonna be browsing DVDs and I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy A League of Their Own. That was a really fun movie.
Yeah.
If somebody said to me tomorrow, hey, want to watch A League of Their Own? I'd be like, well, shit, I'm not doing anything else. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
It was a fun 2 hours. And
as a baseball fan, it is accurate. Like it's a good baseball movie.
Yeah. Again, it's not, I think that's more of a concern to you than it was to me.
Sure.
It entertained me. And you know what? That's one of the two jobs that a movie can have. It can be entertaining or it can be like concerned with being odd.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. This is great. You can stay.
I tried really hard to be like, what critiques do I have for this movie? And it was like, not much at all.
You know what? You know how I knew this was going to be a winner. You at the beginning were giving me reasons that you didn't like it. And I was like, there's just no way. There's just no way. I know a good movie.
Yeah. I had to like get those very little things out of the way. And,
yeah,
you know, I even feel like your point talking about how it would have been maybe too much just seeing Lori Petty's inferiority complex in the main role. To me, I was like, yeah, you know what? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I do like the fact that Dottie, like what you were talking about from the female point of view, I'm like, you know what? I can dig that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very little bad to say. What a really great cast. And, you know, if you're just looking for a nice, fun way to spend 2 hours and you've never seen A League of Their Own, I would watch it.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a show that was on Prime, which I think has been canceled since.
I thought it was Hulu.
It's on Prime or Hulu. I could be wrong, but it was, I know Abby Jacobson was one of the stars from Broad City, A League of Their Own. I would totally check that out, quite frankly, by this point.
Same.
The only thing I would not check out, apparently in 1993, they tried to do a sitcom, and I think they brought back like 2 of the actors who are not I think it was like Marla and Betty Spaghetti, like, came back. So they tried, but it did not last.
Well, all right. I don't think it needs to. It's a great movie. My last question, do you think there will ever be a female baseball league or some kind of like baseball for women?
No, I think there's a chance that, you know, there might be a female player in the major leagues at some point. Just like I'm sure at some point there will be a female, probably kicker or punter, who makes it to the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
cool.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we're past the days of like the lingerie football league.
Oh my God.
Which as a football fan, I was like, this is terrible. They need more pads.
Someone's going to get hurt.
Seriously, the coach is more covered than the athletes, where I was like, this can't be good.
Yeah, there's the CTE is going to be rampant.
Yeah, we know enough now that those girls were all terribly brain traumatized.
Yeah. All right, say the things.
Oh, yeah. If you want to send us some mail, you can send it to movies2watch@gmail.com. You can send us a voice note at anchor.fm/movies to watch. In the link tree below, well, there is a link tree below for our friends at the Hall of Pods Podcasting Network, where you can find some of their stuff. Our link tree is below as well. And our website, which has obviously links to all our newest videos, social media posts, and merch. If you, for some reason, want merch from this podcast, you can have it. Not for free, obviously, you know.
For the low price of whatever it costs.
Yes, for pretty much the lowest price I could possibly have made it. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Gap, I think that's all the things, unless I'm going to tell you what I picked for next week. And I don't think I want to do that yet, because now I'm between 2 things.
Yeah, don't. Sleep on it.
I'm not going with Rocky 2.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I can't hear you not like another Rocky movie. It'll just kill me.
I don't want it.
But I did watch Rocky 2 and Rocky 3 since we last spoke. And that made me feel
I'm happy
nice.
for you.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Let's go watch the World Series. Let's go Dodgers. Sorry, Yanks.
Peace out, bitches.
I've quit drinking.
I've seen the error of your ways.
No, I just can't afford it.